Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69 and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a special video today. We've already done a video of do's and don't do's where it gives you guys advice in what to do and what not to do. So today we're going to be doing part 2 of the do's and don't do's, and we have a very special guest to talk these with me, go through them to help you guys out, and that is HisRoyalFatness. Hello, Fatness.
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining me in this special video. This is like the first video I've actually done with someone else, like actually a video. It's really good, and I thought this would be a great idea because to expand on my first video, I mean that was like my most ever viewed video, and I thought, you know what, it was popular, so why not do a part 2 and expand on that even more to help people what they should do, what they shouldn't do, to pretty much make them better players, because that's what we want, right? We want people to get better at the game.
Hell yes. Well, thank you for inviting me here today, by the way. I appreciate you reaching out to me to help you make this video, or be a guest on your video, I should say.
No problem, no problem. So we're going to go through the list. I've got a list. I'm sure Fatness will add some on, and we'll talk about each individual one. We're going to go through the do's, what people should do first, and then we'll go through what they shouldn't do. Now, in the background, you've just got some replays. We don't need to show you everything on like the do's and the don'ts. We just talk about it, and hopefully it will help. So I'm just going to, these are in no order. These are in no order. That I've just literally, on the top of my mind, thought of these things. And again, some things Fatness might not even agree with, but we can discuss that. So we're going to go through the do's. And the first thing I've got written down is take calculated risks. And what I mean by that is you'll have some games where you're like the only medium, and the enemy might not have any mediums. So do you go with your team, or do you flank on your own and try and get around the enemy team as such? But obviously it is a calculated risk because you don't know what the enemy team are going to do. There's occasions where you're going to bump into 7 tanks all on your own, and people are going to call you a noob. It happens. It happens to all of us. And that's what I mean about taking calculated risks. Like, do you go the medium route on your own and try and flank the team? What do you think about that? Like,
well, no, I agree with what you're saying in this scenario. If you're the only medium tank on the team, I definitely would recommend, you know, if the enemy team doesn't have a strong medium side team, then definitely flanking around is a good idea. But something you definitely should be aware of in this type of situation is there is a possibility, even if the enemy team goes heavy on one flank, that 3 or 4 of them could just turn around and YOLO you. So if you do that kind of aggressive flanking maneuver, you have to be ready to pull out, and you don't want to be super aggressive necessarily at the start. Wait until the enemy team has engaged before pushing in and starting to farm damage. So it is a calculated risk, like you're saying, especially if the entire enemy team flanks around. I would say the best thing you can do there is play it safe until they're spotted and then act accordingly.
Yeah, I've made that mistake so many times where I've been on the mediums and I'm like, right, I'm going to go and flank, and I bumped into 7 tanks. Literally, like, you then start moaning at the team, calling the enemy noobs. Like, why did you come this way? This is the medium route. You're all noobs. Like, you should have gone that way. But yeah, that's definitely one that you should be aware of. The next one I've got, this one could be controversial, and it's shoot AFKs if there's nothing else to shoot. And what I mean by that, if you come across an AFK and you've got no one else to shoot, I always recommend going for that AFK, especially if it's quite early on in the game, because they could have just lost connection. It could be a really good player, and I've actually had it quite a few times where an AFK has came back into battle and won them the game. So if there's an AFK, I would honestly recommend to shoot them if there is nothing else available to shoot. Obviously, if there's a tank alive next to it, you go for the tank that's alive and you leave the AFK. But if you find an AFK all on its own and you're there, no one else to shoot, I personally would get rid of that AFK.
Yes. Well, I mean, as a damage farmer myself, it's always great to find an AFK and just farm up that damage. But like you're saying, as long as you have no one else to shoot, and it also depends on the circumstances of the game.
Yeah,
if
of course.
there's an AFK and you're in a position to shoot him, is it really wise to shoot that AFK in that situation? For instance, if your team is losing on the other flank, in that case, it might be better just to ignore them temporarily and assist your team. It's not instinctive because, of course, you want to get that damage. But if your team is doing all right, holding a position, there is an AFK there, and you can't really get threatened by killing him, then definitely go for the kill. I mean, like you said, I've had situations where I've ignored AFKs and they come back and they have full HP. And I'm in a 1v1 on like 300 health, and I'm like, I should have just killed him at the start.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah, definitely go for the AFKs if your team is doing well and if you're not putting yourself in danger by sitting there and farming them.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, 100%. So the next thing I've got is look at third-party websites like Blitzhanger, Blitzstars, Blitzhanger especially. Like, if you don't know a tank, and this Blitzhanger especially shows you the armor profile, it shows you the effective armor, it shows you pretty much all the stats. Same as Blitzstars, you can put tanks together to compare them. They are really, really good sites to learn all the tanks, what's good about a tank, what's bad about a tank. And you've got these stats in game as well, but things like Blitzhanger, I mean, you can see all the armor profile. You can angle your tank in Blitzhanger to see what your effective armor will be if you're using sort of 10 degrees of gun depression or side scraping, etc. So I definitely recommend using these third-party websites, which I use all the time when I review a new tank. I always use things like Blitzstars, so you can see what the tank is like compared to the next tank very similar to that tank. So always, I would definitely recommend third-party websites to look at, just to get you used to a tank that you're not really used to, or that you don't really know how good the armor is, etc. But they're really, really good to learn and just to get to know all the different tanks.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even use those websites.
To be honest, I
just teach myself by experience, just going out, trying out a vehicle, see what the vehicle does comfortably, or if you run up against a vehicle, just look at it in sniper mode.
Yeah, of course.
I definitely agree those websites are great about getting to know vehicles. I'm just a bit of a muppet, and I just too lazy to take the time to go on those websites. But if you have the time, definitely go for it. I can see how it would be a very useful learning tool.
But don't forget, you're a 70% player. Like we're in general, we're talking about 40 to 50% players that want to get better. So these are the kind of things that will probably help them. And this is my next thing as well. Like, if you have to, go in a training room. Like, take your friends in a training room. And if you can't deal with, say, an IS-4 and it annoys you, take a friend in training room in an IS-4 so you can learn weak points, you can learn how to deal with that tank. So training room, I mean, I don't ever use training room, but I don't need to. A 40% player may need to go into training rooms to learn these tanks. This is what training rooms are there for. It is a shame because I've been calling for Wargaming to add some bots into training rooms so people can actually get better in a training room. They can go into training rooms on their own. But for some reason, they've never added bots in training rooms, and I really think they should, and I really do think it will help people get better if they do add the bots in a training room. But
that's a great idea.
Yeah, most training rooms now are just made to have fun. Like, people play tier 1 and 5, 1 to 5 can't shoot, or whatever it is, like zombies.
Or the infamous dating rooms, the best use of a resource right there.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, training room's really good if you want to learn. Like, take your friends, and you can have fun as well. Next this is more popular in clan wars and tournaments and stuff, and that's share hit points. Share hit points, especially in clan wars and tournaments, is very, very important. I mean, especially if you're in a platoon. If you're in a platoon and your platoon mate's getting shot, take some shots for him so it keeps the players alive. I don't know how you obviously feel about that in random games.
In random games, I actually do. I will shield my teammates if they're low HP or push in so they do not get killed. It depends, though. If I know the player is not an absolute muppet, I will be willing to take some shots, because it is an advantage. Having that extra gun on your team Because two gun shooting at one tank is much better than you just trying to 1v1 a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can see the player is really, really bad, I'm not going to be so protective of their hit point pool just because there's no reason for me to lose a ton of HP in exchange for someone not going to hit their shots.
Instead, you'll use their hit point pool. You'll use their
exactly.
hit point pool because you're the better player. So yeah, this is what a lot of people do. They use them. This is what we say when people say like we need skilled based matchmaking. We need 50% versus 50%. It's just no, it won't work. Like these 60-70% players need these 40% players to actually get their win rate up, and not just coming up against them, but even on their team, like using them as armor sort of thing. Like you've got a double amount of hit points if someone's shooting that player instead of you, and you can then farm them while they are shooting you. So yeah, definitely it depends on the player, but things like platoons, if you're in a platoon, then yeah, you would probably more likely share hit points than any random guy. But if you can keep a tank alive and you know he's at least he's a half decent player, then yeah, keeping a player in the game is better than losing a player.
Now, expanding on this though, if it is absolutely hopeless, and let's say even if it's a platoon partner and they're gonna die no matter what, and you put yourself in a bad position to try and keep them alive, in that scenario, it is actually better just to leave them, relocate or something, because there's nothing you can do to keep them alive in the game, and you would actually end up risking losing the game because you're deleting your tank or your HP a little bit too much. So it depends on the scenario, but if you're in a decent scenario where you definitely can take shots, then go for it.
I totally agree. I actually had a situation today where I was driving my tier 9 Batchat, and me and a Vickers in a tier 10 Vickers, we went sort of on our own left, and we bumped into 5 tanks, and the rest of our tanks all went the other way. So I bailed out, but yet the Vickers stayed. I got moaned at, like he moaned like hell because I left him, and it's just like, dude, like, can't you see that we're going to be in danger? And
yes.
I left, and he stayed, and he then was the one to complain, like, oh dude, you're a pussy, why'd you leave? Because I'm not stupid in coming up against 5 tanks against 2 of us. Like, use your brain a bit.
Well, I would actually like to expand on this scenario you just talked about for a tip that I was thinking of that would actually a lot of people really do not utilize this, and it is communicating with your team.
Yep.
It can be so basic, such as hitting SOS, turning around and running. Just get their attention. If you can say, we need to run, or Vickers, run, while you're running away, just make them aware that they're in a bad situation. You're not going to stay with them. And I've had a lot of games where I've kept my teammates alive just by telling them to run when I was running away. So it's something people don't do a lot in Blitz, and I think it's partially because mobile is a little difficult for typing and driving at the same time.
Yes,
but try and communicate with your team, because it can be really helpful in getting support or having them push out of a dangerous position to keep them alive in the game. It's something I do a lot, and I would recommend a lot more people start doing that because, like I said, it can really help in keeping your teammates alive.
Very true, very true. So the next up, I have play a tank type that suits you, and like you'll probably agree, like you don't really like heavies too much.
No. So, put me in a nice 4 and I'll be whining at you all game.
So if a 40% player or 50% player is no good at playing tanks with no armor, then probably light tanks, medium tanks might not be for them. Like, play heavy tanks, play tanks that suit you.
Yeah, I definitely cannot agree more in this situation. I play primarily lights and mediums because that's the class that I feel most comfortable with in general, positioning wise and everything. I just really love that class. But if you put me in a heavy tank, I'll perform well, but I don't enjoy it, and generally I won't perform well. So,
but you're going to perform well because you are a decent player. But put a 40% player in a tank that they don't like, then they're not going to perform half as well as
definitely play the tanks you enjoy. I mean, a lot better if you're having fun in a vehicle. Trust me.
That's it. Yeah, that's very true. Next up, I've got be patient. And now I'm not good at this at all, especially driving things like TDs, grills, Death Stars. I am not a patient person. Like, I can go into a position, be there for 30 seconds, get bored, and then get the hell out of there because I'm bored. Where I've watched some replays where someone is just staying there, staying put, being patient, and it works out for them. Like, just be patient. The game is 7 minutes long. Like, it's very rare. It's not often a game runs out of time, like in a draw. It does happen, but not so often. So be patient. Be patient.
Yeah,
Use the 7 minutes. Use the 7 minutes if you have to.
Yeah. I mean, expanding on that, I'm personally not a very patient player myself. As I'm sure you know, I do not camp in my tank destroyers. I would never suggest anybody plays tank destroyers the way I do. It works for me because I can make it work. But in general, if a player sees me play 4005 and like, wow, this dude is rushing with the meds or going second line with the heavy tanks, they're like, this is great. Look how much damage he's getting. It works for me because I have the situational awareness to deal with that. Yeah. But in general, with tanks like a 4005, for example, you definitely want to be a little more patient, a little more snipey, and just wait for the enemies to expose themselves. Something I don't do. And I will get myself absolutely deleted in the 4005, but just because I'm not patient and I go front line, generally I can do okay. But yeah, patience is something I would say is super important, especially if you're in like a light tank.
Yeah.
Get the spots up, be patient. There's no need to YOLO in right at the start. You have no HP. You have the camouflage, the view range, and the mobility for a reason. Use it in a patient manner where you can take a calculated flank where you don't just YOLO in, but you take your time, make sure it's safe, take shots while you're not spotted. So I would agree full-heartedly on the patient part, especially if you're in a tank like the Bat Chat. I think that tank requires a lot of patience in general.
Yep, so we agree. And the last one I've got on my list is have fun. Like, it's a game. It's a game. You're supposed to have fun, and you can do that in all different ways. I mean, as I've said earlier, like, go in training rooms with your friends, like play a bit of Clan War or play different game modes if there's the game modes. We've got the skirmish mode that's out. We've got mad games. If you want to have a little bit of fun, like I said, go in training rooms and play humans versus zombies with people, or climbing up hills, or just have a bit of fun. It's a game at the end of the day. So if you can have fun, then that's what the game is doing its job. It's there to have fun.
I mean, yeah, that's the entire point of the game, is to have fun, right?
That's it.
I'm gonna tell a little story about having fun because with this game, there was a period of time back in maybe 2017 or so where my only goal was to become the best player, and that's all I wanted to do. That's all I was obsessed with, having the best stats and everything. And guess what happened?
Yep.
I lost all enjoyment in the game.
Yeah.
Completely. It just made me angry. It made me rage all the time. To the point where I actually took an 11-month break from the game because I just was getting overly worked up over the game because I was trying too hard to be the best and I was forgetting to enjoy the game. Yeah. And after I came back from the game, I didn't have that same obsession with becoming the top player or anything. I enjoyed playing the game more. I enjoyed getting those high damage games and when I performed well. And I just played better when I wasn't trying so hard. So there's a point of being said about the game where it's great to try and become the best player you can, but at the same time, do not forget to enjoy the game, because if you forget to enjoy the game, it becomes more like work because you're trying to achieve something, but you're not having fun while doing it. So if you want to get better, still find ways to enjoy the game as well. I think that is really important.
I could definitely relate to that. Obviously, making videos daily, that Skate did the same. Like, he took a 6-month break because he found it kind of like a job, and I was the same. There was a time in a sort of the last 6 months that I never played the game. Like, the only time I would play a game is to get footage, and it's only since I've been like away from my family and at my parents that I've been going on Discord a lot and talking to people, and like you was one of them, and where we just play, and it's so much fun when you can just play and have fun, like do stupid stuff, double Death Stars or double smashes, or it is fun, and that's what you got to remember. It is a game. It's supposed to be fun.
I mean, that's one thing I don't like seeing is when you're having fun in the game and people complain about that. Like, sure, double 183s can be a little bit on the cancerous side of things, but isn't the whole point of the game to have fun, to enjoy the tanks you like to play? Like, why should someone hate on you because you're playing a vehicle you like, even if it's a little bit broken in some aspects? I mean, it's something I was never really able to understand. I know it's not fun when you get double shot by a 183, but at the same time, the person playing the 183 is having a great time.
Exactly,
so,
yeah, that's it. Exactly that. So that's pretty much all my do's on my list. I don't know if you've got anything
I
else.
would actually like to contribute to this a little bit. So just as in general for just improving as a player, it's when you're taking a position as a vehicle, uh, something that I do a lot is try and predict different outcomes. And what I mean by that is you're on a map, and let's use for example mines. That terrible map mines, which I somewhat enjoy sometimes. Let's say you're in a medium tank. The enemy team has 3 medium tanks. What are the different outcomes that could happen during that battle? The medium tanks could take the hill, in which case you have to be not so aggressive on the hill. The medium tanks could all just sit at the front of the hill, in which case you're at a great trade-off farming position. Or if you only spot one medium tank going hill, where would those other 2 mediums be? So try to predict that. Now, what often happens on the map is medium tanks will actually go to the lighthouse and start shooting you in the side. So
Yeah.
if you're aware of that possibility, that is a possible outcome of this battle, you can really position yourself well to limit your chances of getting flanked or shot in the sides, just because wait, they could go hill, but they also could go to the lighthouse. What is a good position where I can kind of counter both of those positions or pull out if I need to? It's something I do all the time in the game, is just try and predict what the enemy team could do in multiple scenarios of the game. If you're able to do that, you'll be able to formulate a plan in your head as what to do when the enemy team does something you're not expecting, but you were somewhat expecting it because that was a possibility in your mind.
Yeah, of course.
It's a little bit more of a complicated thought, but if you can get really good at trying to predict those outcomes, it will improve your gameplay because you'll be able to have those plans to deal with it.
Yeah. Cool. I have missed one out. I've missed your main one out that you said the other day on the stream. I missed that one out. I didn't read that one on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Learning from your mistakes.
Learning from your mistakes, yes. Always learn from your mistakes.
And by learning from your mistakes, I must clarify. The first step you need to do is identify your mistakes. And what I mean by that is you need to think what you did wrong in every game. If you really are serious about improving, it's something you're going to want to get good at, is what did I do wrong in this battle? What did I do wrong in this battle? And then you need to identify what could I have done better in that battle and think of, wait, I should have done this play instead of this play, and so on. And by doing that, you're learning your mistakes, you're identifying your mistakes, and then you're learning how to handle them. So when you run into a future situation that's similar, you can think back, right, last time I was in a situation like this, I made a really poor play, but I can do this. And if that works out, it's much better. So if it's something you can get good at, just identifying your mistakes and finding solutions to those mistakes, especially when it comes to decisions made during the game, you'll improve really fast. That is my number one tip I always give out.
And this is where replays fit in. Like, just go back and watch. I've done it loads of times where I've gone back and watched a replay that I made and we've lost the game. And I've looked at it and literally I've made one error that's cost us the game. And I look at the replay and I don't realise it when you're in the game, but I've watched the replay and I've just sat there and thought, why the hell did I just do that?
Exactly. Like I had a game in the 140 recently where I made one mistake. I played the game perfectly, completely perfectly, until the very end where I wasn't aggressive enough on a certain vehicle, and that actually cost me the game. I was able to identify it as soon as I made the mistake. I'm like, well, I just screwed myself by doing this. But if you can realize that, then in the future, if I'm in a situation like that, I'm going to be a little more aggressively, because I realized in that situation being passive cost me the game. I'll probably upload the replay to my YouTube channel. A 140 comparison 62 or something. But it was a great game. But one mistake is all it cost me. So like you're saying, if you can look back and find those mistakes, it's great.
Yeah. Cool. So that's pretty much all it's 25 minutes. I said 15 minutes, but that's 25 minutes just through the do's. I don't think we need to...
We already covered some of the don'ts, actually.
We have. There's some of the don'ts that I've put on here, like, that is pretty much the same as the do's. Like, don't focus AFKs. That's one of my don't. But if there's other targets, so one of my do's is focus AFKs if you've got nothing, but one of my don'ts is don't focus AFKs if there is other targets. So pretty much the same. And again, my do's is have fun, and then my don'ts is don't take the game too serious. It's just a game. A couple of others is I've got don't give up. I mean, you have you have these games where it's a 1 versus 6 and someone just raises their gun in the air. Like, I've seen people win these. I had a game recently in my Peugeot, the tier 10 one. In the first minute, I went down to 74 hit points, which you'll see on my channel. I've uploaded it to YouTube. It'll be released soon. I was 74 hit points in the first minute. I come back, stayed alive, and I got 5k damage and an ace. Like, never give up. Never give up until you're dead. Like, simple.
I mean, I agree. Some of the best clutches I've had in games are ones where it was an almost impossible win. And you think, how am I going to win this at all? But you put in the effort, you try your best, and you actually, sometimes you'll get lucky and pull through with the win. So I agree full-heartedly and don't give up. One thing I hate to see is when players just YOLO because they're like, I can't win this. So they just YOLO and get themselves killed. I'm like, but there's that chance you could. So why give up on the chance? You know, you're disappointing your teammates and your own potential of pulling a clutch game. So I agree with that. Definitely don't give up.
And next I've got don't rush up the tiers. Now, for me, this is like one of the most important things. Don't rush up the tiers. Like, until you're ready to get the next tier, just because you can get it, just because you've got the credits, just because you've got the XP, doesn't mean that you have to get it. Until you're ready. If you're not ready for a tier 10, then just keep playing tier 8 or tier 9 until you're ready to play that tier 10. Like, just don't rush up the tiers too quickly. If you have to stay at tier 6 or tier 7 for a while, then stay at tier 6 and tier 7.
Yeah, I would agree full-heartedly on this. It's one thing that I really hated about Wargaming removing all of the tanks from the low tiers, a lot of tanks from the low tiers, is it stopped players from playing low tiers. Now, I know they were trying to reduce like seal clubbing and all that type of stuff, but at the same time, they made it where it's so easy to progress through the tiers right now that you can get a player with like 1,000 games that didn't buy a premium tank and they'll still have a tier 10. And they have no idea what to do because they didn't take the time to learn because they didn't have these different tanks they wanted to try out and experiment with. And it's sad. I've ran into more 30%ers this year at tier 10 than I have in my entire Blitz career for the first 4 years. I mean, it's crazy. When I first started playing the game, sub 45% was rare in tier 10. It was actually a rarity. Like, you wouldn't find it that often. And now you'll see like there's a 36%er in tier 10. You're like, how did we get to this state? And I definitely think it doesn't help that Wargaming also sells so many tier 10s and tier 9. Someone with no experience in the game could just buy a tier 10 right off the bat. And, you know, it's I understand why they would be interested in that. But tier 10 is the hardest tier. It's not a tier you want to rush up to when you have absolutely no experience.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? Go ahead.
And this is what I've been fighting for again with Wargaming. Like, people shouldn't just be able to buy a tier 10 tank. I honestly think that you should only be able to buy a premium tank with where the tech tree up your... So if you've only got a tier 8 tech tree, you should only be able to buy a tier 8 premium tank. You shouldn't be able to buy a tier 9 or a tier 10 until you've got a tier 9 tech tree tank or a tier 10.
Oh, yes. I agree with you full-heartedly on that. That's something I've been saying too. Like, it should be tier for tier. You unlock a tier 8, and then all of a sudden you can unlock tier 8 premiums. But I understand they are a business. They do need to make money, and that would definitely restrict their revenue if they made those predictions. But the player base would really appreciate it if that 28%er isn't playing a WZ-111-5A in their game.
Yeah, very true. That they got out of one crate that they bought for £4.99 or $5 or whatever,
Exactly.
So the next thing I've got, I mean, this could be a difficult one, and some people might not actually agree with this one, because where I say play for fun, people could actually do this for fun, and that's don't seal club like for stats. Don't seal club for stats. Just playing tier 4 for a 70% win rate doesn't make you a good player. Like, you go into tier 10 and you're not going to be able to play. And this has happened so often on EU. Like, there's players that think they are the dog's bollocks because they've got 78% win rate, but they've only got 800 average damage. And they are just farming tier 3. But put them in a tier 10, they're useless. So unless you're playing just for fun, don't seal club like just for your stats, because it's not just your stats is not just about win rate. Win rate is actually not that important. I've bumped into a 48% player that's had like 30,000 games, but he also had 2.5k average damage, which for me is more important than the win rate.
Because he's been useful for his team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
I've got don't blame your team. Again, yeah, your team can be bad, and it could be your team's fault, but also if you die and you lose, there could also be something that you've done wrong. Like, well, we've said before, like, learn from your mistakes. Yes, your team might not be good, but don't always blame the team, which we see so often. Like, I got that rage from the Vickers. Like, oh, you left me. Like, it's your fault. Like, it's not always your team's fault. Sometimes it's something that you've done wrong. So don't always blame the team. Like, look back and think, actually, I could have done that different. And you can't always rely on your team because you just don't know how good they are.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. I mean, you should not expect your team to perform well at all. I mean, it's Blitz. The teams are random. The players are all over the place. You should not expect them to perform well. Now, I am guilty of raging at my teammates when I get really mad. But most of the time, it's because I put myself in a bad situation, assuming my team would help me. But they didn't. But I shouldn't have made that assumption because I can't rely on the skill of my teammates in how I play the game. You really have to play as assuming your team's not going to perform well. If you get yourself killed because you decided to take a position and thought your team would support you, that is more your fault than your team's fault because your team isn't thinking about that. And you're assuming they're going to perform well. So, yeah, I would agree. Don't rage at them. I still will occasionally get a little bit upset at my team. I'm not going to deny that. But overall, I definitely agree with what you're saying here.
And that is all my list. That's my list of do's and don't do's. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Obviously, we can always come back, and we can always come back for a part 3. Like, these seem very popular videos, and people like to learn. And it clearly, like, this is my most viewed video, so people want to learn. If it's my most viewed video, like, people clearly want to learn, and they do want to learn. So hopefully, this will help. Hopefully my last video helped, and just the little bit of advice, obviously from Fatness as well, one of the best players in the game. There's not many people that can give you as good advice as him. So hopefully you guys... Go on.
Huh?
What was you saying?
Oh, I said thank you.
No problem. So is there anything else you wanna add to?
You don't mind if I shout out my channel, do you?
Go for it.
All right, cool. So expanding on what Meadsy was saying about, learning and everything, I do have a YouTube channel, which I'm for the most part dedicating to doing tutorials on like how to play vehicles and how to handle different types of situations. It is HisRoyalFatness, capitalize each word as in my username. Definitely check it out if you want to see some more videos where I break down in-depth gameplay on particular vehicles and how I play them. And I will go through my mistakes as well as what I did well in those games. So if you're interested in learning a little more about gameplay, definitely check out my YouTube channel.
The link will be in the description, guys. It will be there. It will be there. So thank you very much, Fatness. I hope you guys will learn something, and I hope it does help. And again, if you want a part 3 with either myself or me and Fatness or me and someone else, then let me know, and we will look up at different things that you can do that will help and things that you shouldn't do. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all get better. Hope you learn. I'm Meadsy. Your Fatness. Thank you very much for joining me.
I was waiting for you to finish so I could say, everyone take care. Make sure to subscribe to Meadsy for the most OP content on What Blitz. Just subscribe. Like this video. Give him some love in the comments section. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
And go and subscribe to Fatness. Right, thank you guys, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.